Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 34 of Import Nights, the review series for GranTurismo's selection of JDM performance cars, and this particular pick is for a vehicle which was kind of a change from the rest of the lineup of most of my review series. I do occasionally get requests to review certain cars, but I think mostly people get the idea that you don't really need to request them because they're probably going to be featured anyway. With this particular car though, I have had a couple of different requests from people just checking to make sure that it would be featured, and that kind of surprised me because I wasn't aware that this was kind of a fan favourite, and that seems to be the case. And the vehicle in question is the Nissan R32 Skyline, and in particular it's the GTS-t rear-wheel drive version. This is a car which I certainly liked the first time I drove it. It has some pretty good advantages over other GT-Rs, and not necessarily just older ones, but also ones which would come after this particular model. Now, as far as spec, it is cheaper for a start than many GT-Rs. It's only a 24 grand car, which for a Skyline, especially a newer one, really is dirt cheap. Usually you're looking at easily 50 grand plus for a GT-R. Now obviously you don't get quite as strong a spec on this model in terms of power, you don't get all-wheel drive, and as such you don't get that launch off the line, but in other ways it's actually better than the GT-Rs. Consider for instance the weight. This particular car only weighs 1,035 kilos. That is extremely light. That's a good 200 or so kilos lighter than, for instance, the premium R34 GT-R. That's impressive, considering that this isn't a small vehicle. The R32 is still a decent sized car. Now, as I said, you do have less power to work with. You're looking at 491 horsepower, fully tuned. It is a turbo engine, a 2 litre, so it's also smaller than the GT-Rs, and you're also looking at 357 foot-pounds of torque. Now that's still decent power and decent torque, especially given how much smaller an engine it is than the 2.6 litre which you're usually working with. Now combine that power of nearly 500 horses in a car which weighs not much more than a tonne, and you could potentially have yourself something of a performance hero. Especially for the money, it could be a bargain performance hero. So the question is that the case? Is that why this car has so many fans? Well, I have to say, I think that's part of the reason. There may be other factors that I'm not aware of, being as I am not a JDM aficionado. I like cars in general, but I don't necessarily specialise in any one particular field. Whereas JDM fans and aficionados, as I said, may know things about this car which I certainly don't. Maybe reasons why it's more special or more fan appreciated than the more obvious choice of a GT-R. Now, of course, the rear-wheel drive plays into that. A lot of people do prefer rear-wheel drive over all-wheel drive, and that's fair enough. I think both have their advantages. Around the track, if I have the option, I will usually, as kind of a knee-jerk reaction, opt for all-wheel drive. And the main reason why I do so is because of the launch that it gives you off the line. It's a relatively lazy approach, but that's the way I like it. As far as rear-wheel drive though, I do acknowledge that it is often, not necessarily always, but definitely often, quicker. Now in the case of this particular R32, I would say that this is a better handling car, in fully tuned form at least, than the GT-R version. Now there are definitely some people who would disagree with that, but with all of its race parts compared to the R32 GT-R, even the premium, with all of its race parts, I would give the advantage to this one because it's lighter, it's more nimble. The fact that it doesn't have power going to the front end doesn't really matter, because in the case of a car that's already as good as the GT-R or the Skyline in general is, you don't really need that power to go to the front. Obviously on a road in real life it gives you more of a safety net to work with. On a track though, especially on a racing game where life isn't threatened at all, then of course take rear-wheel drive and push it as far as it can go, and with this particular vehicle it responds very well to that method. This particular GTS-t loves to be thrown through corners. It has tons of grip, even on lower grade tyres, and the fact that it's so light and doesn't have an insane amount of power, it has enough to get the job done but not a stupid amount, means that it's actually really beginner friendly. I would say even more beginner friendly than an all-wheel drive GT-R version, even with a similar tune level. Now overall, would I recommend buying it? Yes and no. I wouldn't necessarily not recommend it to anyone, because it's certainly not that kind of car. It's not bad, it's very useful, it's very fun, it's very fast, but it's just the kind of car which I think you need to appreciate what it's trying to do and why it's as good as it is. If you're just looking at it purely for you want the fastest vehicle you can get mentality, then you'd be better off getting a GT-R if you're that kind of person. If though you've already kind of passed over that stage of loving GT-Rs and you want more than that, maybe you want an alternative to just the sheer power and all-wheel drive safety net that the GT-Rs give you, then this is definitely the next level up, I would say. Ironically, for a car that has less power, but I would say this is more of a professional driver's machine in fully tuned form. I don't believe that's the way it was supposed to be in production form, but that's certainly the way it feels on the game. Maybe that is the case in real life as well. As I said, I don't know. But overall, for a 24 grand car, it certainly is excellent value. Although it's roughly half the price of the premium R32, it's got better than half the spec. The power is more than half, the torque is more than half, the weight is even lower, the horsepower per tonne is still 474, and the PP is still up around 535. So, a really impressive car. And overall, I would definitely recommend this car to more seasoned drivers who are looking for something different from your Skyline. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.